the ring and for being willing to be here tonight to answer your questions and tell us a little bit about themselves. So if you wouldn't mind, please, let's give them a round of applause for coming tonight. We could be a little bit cynical and say, what kind of a candidate would you be if you didn't come? But let's just take the positive glass half full approach here of thanking everybody for coming. Also really want to thank you. There is more than enough food back there. So if you get a little hankering, go ahead and grab another brownie or a cookie. The food was graciously donated and supplied by Twin Rocks Cafe. Comb Ridge Eat and Drink, and the Canyon Smokehouse. So those three restaurants are all contributing a little bit tonight to keep you awake, and maybe there's a little extra caffeine in the brownies, who knows. But a big thanks to that. And then the last person I really want to thank before we get started is Kirsten. She really did all the work here. Sending out emails and posting flyers and all that jazz. So big thanks to Kirsten for all the work on that. A little bit of what's going to happen tonight, just to preview for you. In a minute here, we're going to hear from the candidates. And then this is really all about you. This is about you getting a chance to ask questions. And so by questions, we really mean questions. So this is not like a speech disguised as a question, right? It's really like a question you really want to hear an answer from the audience. If you want to ask a question, and we're going to encourage people to ask those questions verbally, good old-fashioned way. If you want to ask a question, there is a sign-up sheet on that back table, and we're going to encourage you to sign up on that. If for any reason, accessibility, or you don't feel good in front of crowds and you don't want to ask the question yourself, but you want maybe me to read the question, you can write out your question and put it in the bowl that is on that back table. So whether you sign up to ask a question verbally or put your question in the bowl, that'd be great. We are not going to have time to answer all the questions tonight. Out of the goodness of their hearts, the candidates may decide to answer some of your questions later. I'll send them home with them. But we're going to only have time for a few questions tonight. But that's how that is going to roll. I am going to walk around with the microphone and ask you to ask your question into the microphone, just so the people that are on the internet can actually hear that question. I'll also maybe try to have the candidates restate that question before you get answering it. One more logistics here is we did draw straws for who was going to speak in what order they were going to speak in. So Britt got the lucky number 1, Wes is lucky number 4, and Jen is number 3, and you're second, Gary. Okay? I should have sat you down in the right order or something like that. We're going to come up with another way of doing the order on the questions. Just so that you all know, I have given the candidates some instructions on timing. We're going to be pretty strict on the timing tonight. Kirsten's going to be doing timing. We've asked each of them to give an opening statement, tell them why you're running, who they are, that sort of thing for 5 minutes. They get exactly 5 minutes. When they hit the 5-minute mark, they're going to get a little warning of 15 seconds, and then at exactly 15 seconds, I am going to cut them off. It's going to sound something like that, this. Thank you very much, Gary. I really appreciate you, right? And then we're going to move on to the next one. And when we're answering questions, each of the candidates is going to get 2 minutes to answer the question with the same sort of 15-second little grace period. And that's how that is going to work. We're going to encourage the candidates, if they don't have something fresh and new to say, that they don't have to answer the question. If they're just going to say, hey, +1, I think what Jen says, I agree with, whatever, right? They don't have to answer all the questions. So that's how it's going to work. I'll just ask real quick of the candidates. Any questions on that? One last thing. This is the fun part. In front of you, you have a poker chip. At any time, you can play your poker chip one and one time only for a 2-minute extension. So you can extend your opening comments by 2 minutes. You can save it for a final comment for 2 minutes, or you can have an extra 2 minutes for one, but only one question. All right? So that's your poker chip. And we're going to have a little fun here tonight. With all that, we're going to go ahead and kick it off and ask Mr. Britt Hornsby to make the first opening statement. And Kirsten will start timing.
All right. Hey, can everybody hear me on this? Am I coming through? Can you hear me? All right. stand up? All right, I can do that. It'd be great. Can I pull this out? Yeah, can I pull it out of this thing? Yeah. All right. Jeez. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Britt Hornsby. I'm 38 years old. I live at 515 East Visalia, so we're the little red roofed house just east of Cemetery Hill on the terrace up there. Me and my wife, Sarah, built that house about 5 years ago. We live up there with our two beautiful kids, Quinn, who is 3 years old and a real mess. I'm sure a lot of you have already met her. And Virgil, who is a beautiful baby boy and will be 1 in October. Let me see. I realized when I was talking to people that a lot of you don't really actually understand my background, where I come from, how long I've been in the area, things like that. So I kind of want to talk about my history in the area, and then I'm sure we'll get into everything else during the questions. But I originally moved out here in 2007. Me and Sarah came out to be AmeriCorps Vista volunteers. We were supposed to be out here for a 1-year commitment while we waited for our Peace Corps placement. That 1-year commitment ended up being 16 years being in the county. We had never heard of anything in this region, never heard of San Juan County, never heard of San Juan River, never heard of Canyonlands, any of that. When we moved out, it was the most pleasant, happy surprise of my life to move here. We came out in 2007. We were Vistas for 2 years. I was with Canyon Country Youth Corps with Four Corners School of Outdoor Education up in Monticello with Janet Ross. Many of you might know her. I did that position. I did volunteer work for 2 years, and then moved into a program coordinator and then a program manager position there. Ended up running the whole thing where I started out as a volunteer. It was an awesome job, but it was very trying on me. We would hire 100 to 120 or so Navajo youth to come out and do conservation work in what's now the Bears Ears region. And we would do that every year. So, in the time I was there, I probably hired 400 people and led 400 plus people by accident. I did not intend to do that with my life. So I decided to leave that and be a river guide for a little while. Luckily didn't have to do that for very long. I got on at Sand Island with the BLM, working as a ranger on the San Juan River with Brant Hart and Linda Richmond. I did that for 6.5 years. On my last season, I left there to go to what's now Bears Ears Partnership, and then it was Friends of Cedar Mesa. I went there to be the program. My title has changed from program manager, field manager, to now I'm the field director there. And that job entails mostly collaborative work on public lands to complete projects, mostly through grant funding, things like that. So I've gotten a lot, especially in the last 6 years, a lot of experience doing project work collaboratively with a bunch of different stakeholders. So I think honestly that's it. Just mostly for the people who didn't know me. And yeah, I look forward to answering any of your questions. If you want to send me a question later, it doesn't come up tonight or whatever, you can send me an email. I have an email account for this. It's britforbluff@gmail.com. Send me an email. I'd happy to get back to you there if you don't want to ask something tonight. Thanks for coming out.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks for tuning in if you're on the internet. I'm Gary Lichtenstein. I'm here with my lovely wife, Kay. She's still here. Thank you. I'm proud to be a candidate for the Bluff City Town Council. I arrived in Bluff in January 1988, shortly after completing my doctorate in education out at Stanford, planning to stay for 1 week. And like Britt, I ended up out here turned out to be 18 years. Kay and I left in 2016. I took a grant-funded position at Arizona State University. And when that ended, we returned as homeowners last year in 2022. I have extensive experience serving in the Bluff community. I've been a member of the Bluff Volunteer Fire Department for 25 years and held positions of chaplain, captain, ambulance driver, assistant chief. And I've drafted over $972,000 worth of awarded grants for the department. I've been a board member of the Bluff City Historic Preservation Association, the Bluff River Trail Executive Committee, Water Rights Resolution Committee, and Southwest Heritage Association. I'm deeply familiar with Bluff's tourist industry, having worked 10 years as front desk of Recapture Lodge, and as a llama wrangler for commercial hiking trips with Buckhorn Llama Company. If you remember Llama Larry, I was Llama Gary. I'm also a business owner. I founded a firm that for 27 years has provided program evaluation and research to school districts, universities, state and federal agencies, and nonprofit organizations and foundations nationwide. Quality Evaluation Designs has earned a national reputation for providing the highest quality results on time and on budget. I'm especially proud of awards I've earned from community organizations, the Amani Award from the International Peace Initiatives for my community service in the US and in Kenya, and the Human and Spiritual Values Award from the Kiwanis Club in Alameda, California for community service there, and Title I Distinguished Educator from Monument Valley High School from 1998 to 2000. My platform. As a town council member, my focus will be on building a sense of community, expanding services, and preserving local control. We should solve today's problems with a future and solution-oriented mindset. The town's emergent strategic plan should be a living document that guides our decision-making with consideration for the generation that will inherit Bluff in 2050. Bluff should be a place where we accept differing views of quality of life and accommodate one another's perspectives through dialogue and compromise. My agenda: to leverage town governance, local business, and our exceptionally strong nonprofit sector to design and build the Bluff of 2050. Sit at state and county tables where decisions that affect Bluff are made. Promote activities and housing for young families. Expand town services in conjunction with conservative budgeting. Strengthen the relationship between Bluff Waterworks and the town of Bluff. Support locally owned moderate business growth and strategize solutions for recycling and secondary water. This is a critical period in Bluff's history as we strive to establish our governance in the face of significant infrastructure challenges and outside forces. I fundamentally believe that issues come and go, but relationships endure. Our ability to collaborate with our neighbors as well as those agencies and institutions that support us and that pressure us will be both the basis and measure of our success. My collegial relationships at the county level with emergency services, the fort, Bluff owners, and town residents and committee members will be critical in achieving our goals, quality of life, and the kind of community that made us decide that this is where we want to live. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Davila. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, participating in local government. I also want to give a shout out to Kirsten and Josh for putting this together. Thank you for organizing this. So I moved to Bluff. I'm a little bit different than everybody sitting at the table. I didn't voluntarily move the first time to Bluff, but I'm sure glad my family ended up here. Moved to Bluff when I was 11, 1984. It was a little bit of a different experience living in Bluff at that point in time. I left Bluff in 1992 to go to college at NAU, where I came home and worked on the summers, but eventually graduated in 1999 with my first BA. I earned my second BA, or BS actually, in 2004 in education. Worked in the school system for about 4 or 5 years. And then in 2011, I started La Posada Pintada, my small boutique inn, which is located over on over near Twin Rocks, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a mom, so let me go back a minute. When I say I bring a different set of experiences than a lot of the other people on the stage tonight, I grew up here, so I've been a kid here. I know what it's like to grow up in a town of 200 people. I'm a mom here. I have a almost 21-year-old and a 16-year-old. So that has taken me away from the immediate need of child rearing at this point. They're kind of big enough to be by themselves. Although My third baby, which is my biggest baby, is not quite there yet. That's my business. It still requires a lot of time, but it's getting to the point where I can leave it by itself a little bit as well. I was a teacher here. I've also had the unique experience of watching my parents grow up and age and grow up. They grew up here too. But in dealing with the challenges that they're now facing and having to deal with at a small town in the community where you have to travel for healthcare and things like that, end-of-life care. Unfortunately, I've had to deal with that one as well. So those are kind of my experiences of growing up here. I feel really fortunate in getting to live where I truly feel like I belong. The Navajo term Hojo, I understand deeply because that's what I feel when I'm in Bluff. I feel that, this is my spot. This is where I'm comfortable. This is where I know I'm happy to say that I think I can honestly say that I now can put a name to about 98% of this room. So that's important to me. I care about what happens here, and I want to make sure that Bluff continues to be a great place for everyone to continue to live. I've spent the last several years trying to make sure that I stay involved and participate in the local government of the area. I try to stay up on town meetings. I kind of love the new feature of being able to watch them from my desk, because I feel like it lets me stay a lot more involved than I might otherwise be able to. I've been participating with the business owners of Bluff for over 20 years, and I have served as the president of the business owners of Bluff for the last 8 years or so. I worked with Bluff Waterworks for the last 16 years. I served on the school community council at the Bluff Elementary School for 6 years. And I've been involved in countless different committees for the community, even with BSA and currently with the town of Bluff as well. I feel like restoring a sense of the community is very important. I feel like we can kind of let issues override who we are. And tomorrow there's going to be a different issue, and we will have come to some decision about that issue, and then the next day there's going to be another issue. I think it's really important that we remember that we're a strong community and value our community relationships with each other over the issue of the day, so to speak. When I'm elected, I will try my hardest to bring about solutions to the issues in a fair and equitable way. I want to be open and listening to all voices on the table. I really feel like as a community, we all have kind of the same core value. We all want what we want. None of us want Bluff to be something else. We moved to Bluff because it's Bluff. So thanks for attending.
Thank you. My name is Wes Shook, and I'm running again for the council. I served 7 or 8 years ago on the Bluff service area. Ran at that point to make sure that we saved water that belonged to the town and not provide it to other entities that might do something else that was county controlled. We became a town because we want local control of our system, both in governmental and in the legal. Now, all of these folks have said, hey, the same thing. We want to be a community. We are a community. I started coming down here in the 70s when I was going to BYU. And, 95 was still a dirt road in those days. So I have a long history down here, although I didn't move back to San Juan County in 2008 when I spent 2 years up at Natural Bridges as a volunteer. I was happy those guys provided me with housing and $17 a day to work for them, so I was pretty happy about that. I'm retired from the Forest Service, BLM, and Kern County Fire. I spent the last 50 years doing wildfire management all across the United States, working on Type 1 and Type 2 incident management teams in a variety of locations and variety of positions. My specialty is aviation operations. At one time, there were only about 50 of us in the nation that were qualified in that position. I really am running at the same point because I think the town is at a crossroads again. I don't want Moab in Bluff. That's the bottom line that I see. We need to make sure, just like Sitla is doing now, up the 9,500 acres up on top of the Bluff Bench, look at what they're doing in Moab. They're moving 15,000 people into Moab. We need to make sure that we don't have the highway coming into Bluff as a real motel heaven or motel roadway. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I think reasonable development is worthwhile. I want to do it. We've bought our house 2010, and I'm happy with it. Although I'm not happy with the taxes, I'm sure that you all received your tax bill this year. Mine doubled, and I don't know why. When I take a look at it, it's not realistic. But the bottom line is I want development, I want real jobs for real people. When we're charging, anybody can find a motel room in this house or in this town for less than $100 a night, let me know. We have folks that are cleaning those rooms, paying for gasoline coming off the reservation. They're getting paid, starting pay is $12 an hour. That does not seem like really equitable stuff at this point. And it's okay. I mean, I understand businessmen need to make their money, but on the other hand, everybody complains about the fact that they don't have workers. Well, guess what? If you don't pay them, they're not coming, If you build it, they will come, is what Field of Dreams said with Costner. So that's just, my point is I want fairness for everybody in the community. Fairness fairness so that all are treated equally and are held to an account for their actions. I mean, I take a look at it. I don't know how many of you have driven down the highway. How many gravel trucks have you seen that are going past 40 miles an hour in town? Thank you.
Thanks, Wes. All right, we're gonna go to our questions now. The candidates are gonna have a couple minutes each to answer them. To start off, we're just gonna kind of rotate through in terms of the order. Gary, you went second. You're gonna go first this time, and then you're gonna go third, fourth. You'll go last, and we'll rotate. Now we're actually gonna be in an order. It's like I planned it or something. The first question is gonna come from Jana Simpson. Where's Jana? Yeah, we're doing a randomized order here. It's crazy, right?
All right, I'm actually going to fold 3 questions into one. Gary, you were articulating Bluff 2050, and so I'm curious to know what that looks like. You've articulated it some, but certainly you can expand on it. But I'd like to hear from the others what that looks like, and especially in these next few years, how that vision is carried out from your own personal visions. And particularly I'm interested in what does affordable housing look like? What does diversity look like? And how are the different players that you see in Bluff now, citizens and businesses, how are they playing a role in being supported towards your vision? That was a big question, wasn't it?
Your 2050 vision and a lot of other things.
Thank you, Jana. I don't have a blueprint for 2050. There's some things that we need to put in place in order to get wherever we define that we're heading. We are in a process, I think, of making a lot of decisions about how we're going to govern ourselves and what quality of life means in this town. And I would like to support a process that is forward-thinking, so we don't make our decisions based on our immediate needs, but on thinking ahead about how this is going to grow the town and support a community, which if we start thinking about what that community looks like now, we have a better chance of having it evolve consciously. We have to be able to control our resources and our businesses. Wes mentioned, and so did Jen, the SITLA is looking at overtaking over 40% of our town acreage. My question is, how could that happen without us knowing earlier than we have? And I think it's because we're stuck in this canyon, and unless we get out of this canyon and go up to Salt Lake and the place where decisions are made, we're going to be the victim of the forces that see this as attractive for reasons other than we do. So I am not advocating a particular blueprint, as I say. I do really like the initiatives articulated in the strategic plan. And I also think if we keep our eyes on the generation that Britt represents and others and fill their needs and their children's needs, we'll be with the right perspective to build a community that is forward-thinking and anticipates a future rather than is victimized by the present. So if you wanted specifics, one of the first orders of business is we have to get our infrastructure in place and we have to have local control. And then we have an environment where the efforts of planning and zoning and the other committees can do their vision without being interfered with by forces that are bigger than we are.
So Bluff 2050. First of all, I hope that I'm retired. Right now, I don't know that that's a possibility. I watched several of the, and a few of the other business owners in the room understand why I say that. It's very difficult right now to own a business and pass it on to somebody else. There's been a few that have successfully done that in the past, but there are a lot of us who are still in the age where we wish we were retired and still running our business full time. In order for that to accomplish, I believe that we have to continue to be a thriving area for young people to want to move here and make their homes here, and hopefully it's not as difficult as it has been for some of the rest of us. I believe that Bluff will still be a beautiful community because we are full of creative people in this community, and I think that we will continue to have unique architecture among our beautiful red rocks. I don't think that we will explode, and I justify that by looking at Bluff for the past 135 years, in which we have remained a pretty constant 250 people population for the last 135 years. When the Latter-day Saint Pioneer came, they had about 250 people. It's ebbed and flowed a little bit. Linda, at one point in time, I think, said that we have about 30% turnover every 3 to 5 years. I believe that that's true. So I don't see it growing hugely. I do hope that we continue to be an exciting community that people want to come live in. I think we need to keep our unique ideas alive and well and protect what we have here and continue to grow in the way that we have managed so far. I think it's important to continue to manage the growth and not just let things go wild.
You or me? Okay. Anyway, that's 23 years from now. I hate to say it, but I don't think I'm going to be around to see 2050. I would like to, but I don't think it's possible. However, I do think we need to set the tone and the requirements and regulations that will allow the town to grow in a responsible manner. To me, that's the whole key. My neighbor and I bought property across from our houses to protect it from development. And that is the key to me. My kids have been told that when they inherit the land, they're not to sell it. They could just pay the $400 a year on taxes and be totally happy with it. So that is where I'm at. 2050, long time away. We have been working towards becoming a town for years. And it's going to take a lot of time and effort. And with an aging community that we have, we can no longer rely on volunteers to do that job. We need, as a town, to start working. We did this. We need to hire folks to do the work that we can't do. I hate to say it, but that's the bottom line for me. Thank you.
I guess for me, like thinking about something like way down the road, like 2050, I would like to, like the way we all look at Moab and say, like, don't do that. I would like people to look at Bluff and try to figure out what we did right by that point. I think to your point about housing, I mean, it's the accessibility needs that are here now. I think we need to focus on that as a key thing to growing this town in any manner, by a bunch or by any at all. Like anybody that's tried to find housing here, it's a struggle. And so I like to take an approach on like what can we do now, like incrementally now, like not just rewriting plans over and over and over again, but getting to work on things that are tangible now so that I don't have to wait for, Quinn to be 30 before we've realized a goal that we rewrote. And like Gary said, the strategic plan kind of lays out like kind of where we're headed. And to what Jen said, I don't foresee us growing in kind of the Moab kind of leaps and bounds. But I think for us to be sustainable, we will have to grow a little. We will have to attract more people to come in and make this a home. I think fiber has done a good job with that, and especially the move to work from home in a lot of places is going to make Bluff a attainable place because at least you've got the job taken care of. Now you've just got the housing worry. Yeah, so I think that's it. And, and I think that maybe like for the tourism front, it'd be great if we were a model for like ecotourism, like how to do it mindfully and appropriately while keeping the integrity of our surrounding public lands and neighbors. Thanks.
Bill Crowder's next.
Good evening, candidates, sacrificial lambs, whatever. I'd like to preface my question with a comment. I was a business owner myself for like many, many years. And I don't have antipathy toward business per se. Some business practices, yes, business, no. I mean, that's what I did. I'm not full of self-criticism. Anyway, here is, finally get around to it, my question. Everybody says don't Moab Bluff, and I think everybody agrees with don't Moab Bluff. But that's a generality. And I would like to ask you specifically, what types of businesses would you approve of being here in Bluff? In other words, is the Love's Truck Stop okay? Is the car wash okay? Is the dollar store okay? Is another resort okay? That's what I'd like to ask each of you. And if the answer is none of the above, well, fine, then I got an answer. So have at it.
Thanks, Bill. And Jen, you're first this time.
Okay, so I think that we are in the middle of a very beautiful landscape. And I do agree that I think ecotourism and trying to introduce the world that comes to visit us and give them a reason to love our wild spaces is an important role to play in Bluff. that's what I have watched Bluff develop into in the last 20 some odd, 30 some odd years, and I think that's a great way to go. I like the fact that we have been kind of limiting on our franchises in the area. I think that it's nice to support local small businesses. I would like to see some possibility of some things that go less seasonally. I think that's important for all of the workers who live here and important for the other businesses who live here. So, I mean, if we could get some more stable things other than just the elementary school or the clinics or something like that that provides a more long-term. I think the 501c3 mentality, the 501c3, the people who are coming here and able to work through the internet and things like that have really kind of changed the dynamics of Bluff, and I like that. So, what we can do to help with the Friends of Cedar Mesa or not Friends of Cedar Mesa anymore, but there's a partnership. I think jobs like that are great. I also would like to see us be able to be more self-sufficient in food-wise. I think we have a fabulous farm out there. I would love to see it go into more food production rather than hay production, although I know that's where a lot of the money is. We've got a great growing season in our community, so I would like to see us develop that. I would also love to see some kind of little market or something so people can shop locally. I think those are all very realistic possibilities in the future.
Well, I agree that we need folks that are willing to work at home. But to do that, they need housing. We don't have the housing. Not only that, for those of you who have tried to get any work done, where do our folks come from? Blanding. So we need to get folks in the town that can do the work, for all of us. I mean, I take a look at my house, and it was built by the lawyer who's now a barrister in England, and I'm still looking for a square corner in that house. So, I think that's really the key, is we need to increase our housing stock at a recommended level where it's not really expensive. Take a look at Blanding. Blanding is through the roof. We moved down here because we enjoy the peace and the quiet. We can do that in other ways and still increase the business folks. At least I believe that. And again, Jen's right. We're really working on a tourist industry that runs 10 months a year? Maybe 9 months a year? So we need to get that farther along as far as I'm concerned. And Bears Ears, just wait till you see the solar eclipse in October. And if you think the county says 20,000 folks, they'll be real happy to see just 20,000.
So Bill, I'll try to answer some of the individual things you said. So you mentioned like a Love's truck stop. Like, I'm not for that kind of franchised development in town. I just got through doing a cross-country drive with my family from Alabama to here, and one of the things me and Sarah kept talking about is like how much each town looked the same. You had outskirts with some new gas stations, and then progressively things got worse and worse and worse until you're in downtown, and if you were lucky, there was some downtown revitalization going on. Oftentimes there wasn't. And then you'd get out of the old historic area and back out into a sea of quick stop kind of things like Love's and things like that. And it was over and over and over again. One of the things about Bluff is that we're unique. Like Jen said, I definitely want to keep us unique, and resisting some of that will keep us unique. Now, stuff like a car wash, not a big fan of things like that, but I could see that being at least serviceable and useful to some people in town and maybe from the res. Things like the Dollar General. The Dollar General is a good one. That one really kind of tears me up a little bit, to be honest with you, because I'm not a fan of Dollar Generals, but I don't use Dollar Generals. Those aren't normally put in areas for people like me. They're normally put into areas for other folks that might have needs that I don't have. So while I would not be happy with something like a Dollar General, especially the signage and things like that they would have, I also don't want us to knee-jerk say no without thinking about the needs of some of the other surrounding community members that might not even be in town. I do I think keeping things boutique allows them to be unique, allows us to have more of that local control. and less of that franchise kind of control. Some of our ordinances, like our signage ordinances, kind of answers a lot of this for us. A lot of businesses won't come because they can't do the signage that they can do in every other town. So yeah, fighting to keep us unique.
Thanks, folks. Back to Gary for the last one on this one.
Okay, thanks. I echo what others have said. I would summarize it by saying we should welcome moderate growth from existing businesses and new businesses that preserve and strengthen the character of our town. Now, the character of our town is evolving, and I think it's being defined by the issues that come up and the people who are here. When I first moved here, this town was deeply connected to the land in terms of archaeology, land tours, and river tours. The people who did those grew up in those ecosystems and deeply connected. Over time, these have evolved a little bit, and now we have a new character. I agree that the nonprofits add a really nice dimension to our environment. I believe that we should stay tourist-based, arts-aware, and eco-focused, which is in concert with the town we have. I really appreciate Britt's comments about recognizing that the nature of the businesses we have addresses the diversity that Jana has mentioned, and that's a balance that we're going to be, I think, challenged to address effectively going forward. But it's a good one, and we'll just take it. Again, the strategic plan lays some of this out, and as we are forward thinking, I think we can manage these, negotiate these successfully.
All right, we're going to go to the bowl here. This is a question from an anonymous person from the audience, which I'm hoping that we can answer quite quickly. But the question is, will you commit to recusing yourself if something comes before you that is personal or financial? Oh, you got to hold it for a second.
Okay. It's been an issue with me for years that folks that have got financial interest in the town or in some business are voting for their best interest. I'm not going to do it. I don't need any more money. I have got my retirement fund from the government. I've got my wife's Social Security. And so we're sitting halfway decent. I would more than be happy to refuse to do that or recluse myself, whatever that big word is.
I'd be tickled pink if I had enough finances to have any kind of financial conflict with anything. Yeah, totally recuse instantly on something like that. That's totally fine.
It's easy to say recuse. It's the law, actually, and it's stipulated pretty clearly in Utah codes and regulations. The challenge is in a small town, things get mixed up and mixed together. So I do think it's an issue of personal integrity, but also, I like the standard of conflict of interest, that it's an actual or perceived conflict of interest. And I think that where there's a gray area, if there's a perception of a conflict of interest, then that has to be addressed directly, and I would go for the recusal as a first option.
So this is a tricky one because I think we get into separating, I think we're all affected financially or economically by decisions that are made by the government of this community. I believe actually that the law states that as long as you state that you have a conflict of interest, you are still allowed to vote. Personally, I think that you shouldn't try to benefit from your government position But honestly, I do think that all decisions that we make in local government affect all of us financially. So you can't recuse every single decision that you make. So, like I said, I don't think that you should personally benefit from your elected position. But I think it's important to take people or the financial aspects of how things affect the community into account when you're voting.
Thank you. That was our record for the fastest one. Here's another one that's maybe a little more complex. This time we start with Britt, I think. Do you support more oversight on building permits? This question is, I think, from Melissa, if I'm reading the handwriting right. But do you support more oversight on building permits?
More oversight on building permits. I mean, I feel like so far the land use permits and permit system that we've got now has been working out for people, unless I'm unaware of some conflict. My wife Sarah was on planning and zoning. She was the chair of planning and zoning for 4 years. So while I wasn't on, anybody who's married knows how that goes. I sat next to a lot of this stuff. No, I think what we've got now is probably good, and definitely good if planning and zoning as a body doesn't see any reason to make changes or anything like that. I think we're probably pretty good to continue how we've got it. I lost track of how. Okay. This way. Just to him. Okay, gotcha.
You know, I believe planning and zoning. When I first moved into the house, we bought it, I asked Bruce Bunker, who at that time was the building inspector, I said, have you got the plans for the house? Oh, no, but you should see, I stopped him from doing a lot of dumb stuff. So, you know, we do need planning and zoning. We need some of that requirements, but I think we're doing okay right now. We don't have any enforcement officers at this point. We need to think in the future whether or not we need enforcement. When I see all the stuff on the planning and zoning, look at the website, take a look at what they're recommending or doing, it's pretty hard to figure out what they're doing. They don't have street addresses, they don't have this, they don't say what actually is going on. So I believe we're doing a good job. We can always do better in that regards. Thank you.
Well, being a wife of a licensed contractor, I think I have looked at a few building plans that have come down the pike. I think we do have building laws that are in place, and I think that it is important to continue to follow through with those and enforce them. Most of the building laws are set on international building codes, actually, and they're put in place for people's safety for the most part. So I do think it's important that people pay attention to those, and I would like to see, although this is very difficult to do in our area, would like to see the town of Bluff find someone who we feel is a qualified and good building inspector to come and manage building projects as they proceed, just to make sure that everybody's doing things in a safe manner and that, you know, it's not going to come back and hurt them in the end. I think it's good to have licensing, and I think it's important to employ the people who are licensed to do the work that they're licensed to do.
I don't have much to add. I agree with what's been said. Planning and zoning, you folks are working so hard to put so much in place so fast. And I think it's just the nature of this historical moment and a lot of needs right at the front end. So I think that we have the structures in place, and the rest will be worked out over time.
Thanks, I appreciate this. I particularly appreciate when we don't have to like rehash things other people said. That's like a good sign for a future town council. Paula, your question is next. See if I'm reading it live now. Would you support development on lands that have Native American burial sites? Let's go ahead and start with you, Gary, since you had to finish the last couple of times, and head back the other way.
That's a tough one. It sort of falls under what Jen was talking about where all the things we vote on affects all of us. Burial sites are all over the place in the ground out here. And of course, you'd never permit something that you knew at the front end was a sacred burial site. On the other hand, we can get into these projects and have and found that there's, there's bones and there's artifacts that are protected. So I think, we should have a respect for the cultures that have been here, that are here now, and then take it one issue at a time, as it comes up, and figure out what the laws are and what the opportunities are, and if we can proceed or not.
I too think that's a hard issue. I think particularly in the town of Bluff, that's a hard issue because I know of very few sites or pieces of property that are available that don't have some sign of past habitation. I'm a firm believer in repatriation if that's what needs to happen. I also think if it's a significant site that it needs to be looked at and possibly relocated. I think it kind of depends on the scale to an extent, and yeah, that's a hard one to come across. But I think I do agree that you have to take it case by case and evaluate. And I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question, Paula.
Well, different take on this. I don't believe that we should develop those lands. The sand hill that I've bought, Stevens and I both, shows in the old records of the town that it is a possible burial site. Am I going to build out there? It's a sand dune. That means that's going to take a dozer to do it and all that. Not going to happen. And I think we need to take a look at all of that when it goes by. When they built the highway, paved it, they went right through the village out there. Highway 95, the same way, they went through villages up there. And we need to really respect that stuff. We did the stormwater here with the Bluff service area down on, was it 6th or 7th? No, it was 6th. What did we end up with as they're digging the hole? Ended up with 5 people that had been buried out there. To kind of shut the project down, but we had to do it to make sure everything was respectful. So that's where I'm at. We just need to respect what we have in our community.
Yeah, I'll agree with start from a place of respect. I think this gets into, like you mentioned, diversity earlier, diversity and inclusion with parts of this is if this is something happening frequently and it's stopping projects, it's something where they're running into as a town, then it seems to me like we need a process to handle it. How, if somebody runs into something like this, what do they do? What's the appropriate way to handle it? And I think that process should probably be built out, with reaching out to tribal partners who can help us figure out if there's other towns that this affects a lot, like how have they moved through? How do you handle the situation? And then come up with a process to give landowners a way to figure out what to do. If it happens over and over again, we'll just have to address it. Yeah.
Okay, Tina, you're next.
Bill cheated and asked my question, but I got another. I got a backup, yeah. I know that Brant Murray and Jim Sayers are not going to be running. Consequently, after the election, 2 of you will be replacing the guys who have had a major role in working with Utah Dene Bakea and trying to create a community cultural center for the town. And it's been a struggle, and I don't know whether it's fair to ask, but I really am interested in how you see we might move forward with this project in a way that could benefit the community, link us in a positive way with our Navajo neighbors, and also pay our bills. Right now, it's a financial drain.
All right, randomized order. You want to take it, Britt?
Sure,
Okay.
might as well. I was inhaling. So the CCC, I mean, I think with that, having a partnership with UDB, making sure that the partnership is stronger. UDB has their challenges like all NGOs do. I think being able to adapt with their changing structure, with changing people and changing people in positions, I think I've got a fair amount of experience working and trying to work with UDB, both successfully and unsuccessfully, it depends. But I think that it'll have to be the driving force for that will have to be town. It'll have to be, if it's two council members pushing and working with UDB, I think it'll have to be the ball's in our court, is my opinion on it. And I think it is a humongous project that will take a significant amount of time of whoever's put on it. And I think you bite off what you can chew, and you just start knocking it out, working with them as partners. I think CCC is probably one of the most critical things to get working on instantly. Like you said, it is a financial drain. There's also, there's contentions with it as it sits there. The ultimate goal is to have the food bank there. So I think moving it forward would be wonderful. We even have opportunities for things like being a wood bank for distributing firewood, things like that. So we need to get the building up and running so it can be functional and helpful to town now. But I do think town has to be the driving force behind getting that building to where we want it to be.
Well, I'm a firm believer in fiscal responsibility. And so we need to make sure that the CCC is paying for itself. It's the bottom line to me. And also we need to be, although we are partners, recently BART, the Bluff Animal Rescue Committee, asked for putting up some kennels there. Those kennels and those dogs are all coming off out of town. They're not coming from here. So we need to have an equal voice in it. We need to make sure that everybody is paying their fair share. That's the way I see it with that community center. And it is going to cost us money, folks. There's no two ifs, ands, ors about that. So that's my sense.
Well, I don't think that there's a whole lot of question about where I stand on this project. I've had a big dream for that building for many, many years. What I would like to see is I would like to see a clear vision stated, because right now I personally feel like there isn't a vision statement for the building itself. I've heard lots of wonderful ideas, but I don't think that there's a clear mission for the purpose of that building. So to me, that's first we need to get the fire suppression system in so people can actually use it, and then I think the very next step is to actually put a design on that property and have a vision to fulfill. I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think it's an incredible piece of property and has great potential to link both, to just serve as a resource for our native population, for our visitors who come to visit and learn about things, and also as a learning opportunity space for the community. I think also it's great if we can incorporate some government business offices in there as it has been thrown out in the past. I know that it's very frustrating when you have to drive to Monticello and the office that you want to go to is closed, and that's just me coming from Bluff. We have people who travel 45 minutes longer even there, so I think Bluff is a good central communication or community hub for places like that. And yes, I think it needs to pay for itself, but I think that it could do that in terms of service as much as monetarily.
I'm not close to this issue. I've heard bits and pieces. I haven't been personally involved, but Britt, Jen, they're deep into it. And there's community members, Tina, as you know, who've been working at this for a while. This is the kind of project I get really excited about because so many of the things we've been talking about tonight coalesce in the potential of that building. And if we can get that sorted out, I think it will help clarify the character of the town. And also, I think that there's, given the different constituents in there, there's some really rich grant funding possibilities. It's very fundable. And Dan Ritchie, the president of University of Denver, when I was there, used to say big money follows big ideas, or good money follows good ideas. So I think that the challenge of working that through, and yes, it has to be profitable, just like the town does as well. It is, I agree with Britt, this is something we should jump into right away and keep going and move ahead for not just, as Jen said, not just for the sake of the building, but for the community as well.
All right, I'm going to take a little moderator's privilege looking through some of the questions here. We have multiple questions about water. And obviously water in the desert is a hot topic. Instead of asking the specific, I'm going to kind of combine here and say, what are your biggest concerns when it comes to water and water rights for Bluff, and ensuring that the future of Bluff's water supply is strong and secure? So your take on the future of water in our town. Let's see, how have we been doing that? I think, Jen, will you take that one first? And we'll go Jen, Wes, Britt, and back to Gary. Sound good? Hand that over to Jen.
Thanks, Gary. Water in Bluff. Well, I think it's important that we continue to manage the water that we have in our community. We have a wonderful aquifer that provides us all with wonderful drinking water. Water rights are tricky, and managing water is hard work. And we do have a functioning water board right now that keeps our water very reasonably priced and manages it well, in my opinion. I also know that our current water board is aging in population. We have 3 of our water board members sitting here tonight. And I've heard at least 2 of the 3 in the room express an opinion that they would love to be able to retire and pass the torch on to someone else. So it is a process in development. I think that when we're looking at transferring the works of the waterworks, that is important that we look at all aspects of water. Right now, we've been doing some research and studies that is showing that our summer use is 3 to 4 times higher than our winter use is, and a lot of that is our tourists that come through. But if you look at individual properties and things like that, you can also see that a majority of that is summer watering. So I think that one of our biggest issues that we should focus on at this point is taking advantage of the secondary water rights out of the river that we have. And I would really like to see a secondary water system developed to work with our primary culinary water so we can quit watering our plants with our culinary water. And besides that, the river grows better gardens than our alkaline culinary water does too. So that's one of my focuses. I would like to see the development of a secondary water system that uses our 500 acre feet of secondary water rights from the San Juan.
Well, this was the reason I ran for the Bluff Service Area Board years ago, was that we need to make sure we control our water. The Bluff Waterworks Special Service District is county appointed. We have no say over what they do. And if you take a look at the water rates, the more you use, the less you pay per meter. So a motel is paying less than you guys are paying to keep your house going or whatever. I mean, the bottom line is $25 a month is cheap. Mine goes up to $50 in the summer when I'm paying for the garden. But the bottom line is we need to control it. We need to take it all back and let the town manage that water system in some different way, whether the town starts a water department or whatever, they need to do that. With me, water down in the desert is not going to get any easier to get.
This is a topic I've avoided like the plague as a resident for most of the time I've been here. Even before I moved to Bluff, I knew not to bring this topic up unless you knew what you were talking about. So yeah, I'm for town control over town's water. Seems like the most democratic approach to it. And to talk about what Jen mentioned, she said she was talking about the retirement and the people wanting to move on into something else, doing something else. It seems like this is in this transition time, a good time to start training up new folks in town to help participate, to be part of that, and whatever the new way it looks like. So we have somebody there that we can pass the baton to, rather than just expecting people to move over and keep doing the work or whatever. So it seems like we should take advantage of the transitional time, start training up new folks. I know that there's interest from younger folks to work with water. So, yeah.
Yeah, Britt, I'd love to know who those younger folks are. We all would. I disagree with my colleagues, a couple of them up here, because I think we do control our water. The people who are showing up at the meetings every month, the people who are out digging up the broken sewer lines at 2 in the morning in the winter, the people who are keeping our water rates low, the people who've created a water system that is admired throughout the region, and people come to see how we figured out how to recycle water in the desert. Those are our town people. Those are residents. They're not the county. And they've been doing this for a long time, and they've been doing it really well. If you're paying $25 for water, where else in Utah are you going to be able to pay that amount? So I do think we have control, but as Jen said, if we don't use it, we lose it. We have water. If we're talking about forward thinking, we have to get in a position to use the water rights that we have. We have to think about water in terms of culinary, secondary, and wastewater. And I think they're tied in together, and that we should think about it as a piece and strategize a water department that begins to move these resources into one place, so we plan strategically and over time, so it's not an emergency. But fundamentally, I agree, we need to pay attention quickly to the water rights that are at risk if we don't use them, and that's our secondary water.
All right, a little less controversial of a topic. From the day you start, what do you have to offer to the town of Bluff? Like, what are your strengths that you would bring to the town of Bluff and to the town council? And for those of you that are pretty busy, how will you find time to put in the time that's necessary to serve on the council? So Gary, why don't we start here and work that way back with you, if you don't mind.
The strengths that I think I bring to the board are probably, I would start with, I listen. I listen carefully. I try to listen more than I speak, although my wife might differ. But I really think it's important to understand the perspectives of people who are involved in the issues we're talking about. And then I listen, and I try to see how we can navigate a way through that strengthens our community and in a way that makes our quality of life stronger. So that's not a minor thing from my point of view. I'm very collaborative, and I cherish the relationships I have at the local level, the county level, and I'd like to cultivate more at the regional level. for Bluff. And that's not just with our friends. We can't survive if we can't collaborate with those who are pressuring us in directions we don't want to go. I have run a business for 30 years, and I understand about being strategic with finances and how to parlay your resources so that they achieve your goals at the best price. So when I talk about expanding services but budgeting conservatively, I think that's a strength that I bring. I also know the character of the town, and I think that we need to recognize that Bluff still is a place where if you want it done, you're going to have to step up and participate. And I think that I'm the kind of leader that will inspire people to do that. And as far as finding the time, that's my problem. I mean, it's my issue. I always have found the time. I always find the time. And I don't think anyone would say that I've underperformed in any of the positions I've had for the 30 years that I've been in Bluff.
My strengths, I feel like I've tried to stay involved in area concerns for the majority of my life. I have a lot of established relationships that I've developed in the past. I think that one of the things that can help Bluff most is partnerships with other entities, and I certainly know a lot of other entities, and I'm always looking for some way that I can make someone my partner, because I think it's easier for two entities to work together towards a common goal and accomplish it. So I think that's a big strength for me. I've got a good knowledge of the area that we live in. I also am willing to listen to all sides of the story. I feel like I've grown up my whole entire life trying to sit on the fence and not necessarily swaying or going one side or the other. I feel like I'm a pretty moderate person, and I try to take into account both sides of a story before I make a decision. I think that's important. I like to see solutions to problems. I don't like to see problems that are unsolvable. So solutions is a big important part to me. Time management, it's a little tricky. I hope that I appreciate all of the work that the town of Bluff has currently put in, and I hope that we can kind of hopefully maybe lessen some of the time that the members of the Bluff Town Board will have to commit. But I am willing to put the time that I need to solve an issue into practice. Sometimes I have to be reminded, but I try to take the time and jump on meetings when I can and where I can, and make it a priority to make it happen.
Well, like I said, I'm retired. You know, I have more than enough time in my hands, so I don't watch MSNBC news all day long. So the bottom line for me is getting along and working with other folks, which I did. I have been the Young Democrat president at Brigham Young University. And if you don't think that isn't a hard thing to do, then I have to say, you don't really know any of that. So, you know, we can all get along, you know, and what was it, Rodney King that said, why can't we just all get along? We can do it if we work together. That's my whole plan, or what I would see in the future.
I think some of my strengths I can bring to this position are I've got a lot of experience doing collaborative work, project-based work collaboratively, which I'm sure if anybody's done anything collaboratively, realize that's a total different beast. So daily I work with different groups. I pull together tribal partners, other NGOs, federal land managers, state land managers, and funders, all to work towards a common project, which is oftentimes a lot harder than it sounds. Even though you have the same goal, you're all coming from different places with different desires and outcomes, even for the same thing. So I've got a lot of experience working on that over the last 16 years. I've got a lot of grant writing experience that I've really gotten in the last 6 years. I've done some before, but the last 6 years working with Bears Ears Partnership, it's almost constant thing that we're doing is putting grants together, kicking them out the door. So I've got experience at writing grants, implementing grants, and then reporting on grants. I think that could be a strong asset to the town. And with that, of course, comes the budget management that comes with grants and also with just managing a program. I'm also, just personally, I'm very averse to drama and gossip and things like that. I normally don't like even participate, even in a listening way. So I think that's a strength to have. Flexible. As well from different opinions. And the time, I have 2 kids. It was definitely my primary concern. It was if I'd have enough time for this. And then I thought about it. This is actually the most stationary and stable I've been in many years. I've got a house. I've got kids. I'm not going anywhere. And because of work from home, I'm pretty flexible and can make the time even when it at first feels like it's not there. So, yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I've got a question that came in online, but now it's coming via text, so I'm going to read it off of Luann's phone. This is from Jim. The council has been resistant to addressing our alleys and streets and the incorrect way many public accesses have been given away. What will you do about this issue? So what will you do about alleys and streets and the issues that we have around alleys and streets in the town?
Okay. So we run into this all the time at Bears Ears Partnership. Our back alley into our parking lot is that alley cut off, which makes my job, where I'm moving trailers and equipment around a lot, very, very difficult. So I understand people's frustration with it. I personally don't know how you undo something that egregious. And yeah, I would just have to look into it. I imagine it would be quite the process. Just like everything surveyed 4, 5, 8 feet off, in general, when you run that against any kind of GPS software or anything like that. So I don't know. I think you'd have to come up with a plan to address it, and just almost like a subcommittee basically, and just start addressing it, probably with first fact finding. If any other towns had something like this happen, how did they undo it? How do you make right something like that when there's fences through properties and things like that? I don't know. I would have to work with people who might know and figure out what to do.
Well, not to be the bad guy in this, but I stopped Bears Ears, well, no, what do you call it? Bears Ears? Partnership now. They used to drive through Bar West property, which belonged to the town. They created a road to go through there. I went ahead and put a fence in there. Didn't make Josh happy, didn't make anybody else very happy, but that's okay. The problem is we've let things go on too long. We need to deal with it on an individual basis right around, however we want to do it. The alleyways were put in for what reason? They were put in for easement for electrical, natural gas, or whatever, or sewer or water. We haven't seen any of those come in. So I don't know what to say. I just think we need to start addressing the issue section by section, street by street, and let the town make that decision, or the property owners. Thank you.
I think alleys are important. They do serve a purpose in a community. They are routes for utilities and other aspects in the community. I think that oftentimes when you don't have something like that, you tend to overlook it, and I know that we have had people who have ignored them. We have some of the biggest right-of-ways as a state in the country. I know it's very easy to encroach on your road right-of-ways and now adopt it and consider it to be your own property. But those places are there for a reason. And I think as we grow, it's important that we remember that that's the future home of something, whether it be your sewer line or your your internet line or eventually your natural gas line. Those alleys and streetways are designed the way they are for a functioning community. I think they're important. I think we need to, it's hard to say that, you're going to make somebody move their house because it's in the right-of-way or an alleyway on the street. So I think we need to look at things, how they are on the ground at this point, and make an evaluation of what to do with them, but be future-minded in that those roadways do serve a purpose.
It's a mess, absolutely. And it's not all of our making. This has been going on for years in Bluff, and we can't undo most of what's already been done. I favor the idea of a process at the town level, which I know has been mounted, at least to some extent. And, not all alleys are created equal. First of all, Bluff is the only town in San Juan County that has alleys. So we're kind of unique in that respect as well as others. Not all alleys are equal. In many cases, the survey lines have been off, but we built fences, we built byways, easements that circumvent what's on the map, and I think community, neighbors working together can resolve in many times an equitable solution that is effective for those involved. But there are some that are just going to be nasty. And so, again, I would favor the efforts generating within neighborhoods and then a process at the board level, the town council level, to help navigate the challenges, the specifics.
Okay, we're going to have one last question from the audience here, and then we'll have a wrap-up. But Ann Brown.
All my good questions were already asked. So that just shows you how brilliant our community is. Because we spent a long time today coming up with questions. I think you all are really qualified, which is amazing, because I came into this wondering how you could find 4 really qualified people willing to put the hours in, because I'm amazed at the volunteerism here. But I have one last question that wasn't asked. I'm so glad. What do each of you see as the 3 top points in the strategic plan that was just adopted by the town?
If you're aware of the strategies, 3 top points in the strategy, or if not, your 3 top strategies for the future of Bluff. How about that? And we got to start in the middle because we've been going side to side. So how about, okay, Jen's volunteering to go first, and then we'll go Wes, and then.
The strategic planning, I was a part of that. I thought it was a great process. I thought that the people that did a very great job of selecting a very diverse and well-representative faction of the town of Bluff and the surrounding areas for the strategic planning session. There was a lot that we covered in those days. My number one, and I believe that it was really brought up, is working on the CCC, getting that off the ground and running and in operation. That was a big high priority, and I think also an achievable priority for the strategic planning. The development of long-term rentals or long-term properties, long-term housing for people in Bluff was high on the priority list. I think that's an important thing also that I would like to see happen in Bluff. I really think we need to find some more places for people to live long-term in our town. So that's high on my priority list. And then the transition of the water, the whole water system, not just culinary water. We really need to, I think, pay attention to culinary, secondary, and wastewater. Wastewater is one of the, in my opinions, tragedies of Moab, I don't think that they paid attention to their wastewater, and I really think it's come back to get them in the end. So I really hope that we can focus on those things, CCC, housing, and water.
Well, I agree with that. Water is the most important issue that we need to deal with. CCC is the second one. And then housing, again, we need to figure out some way that we're going to provide housing for our temporary workers or for our workers, or a transportation system to come off the reservation. And as we age out, how many people are going to be able to drive to Cortez and go to the doctor's appointment? We need a medical facility here in town. So those are mine, water, housing, and the CCC.
Yeah, this is an easy one. Same three as those. Yeah, it's a great document too for those of you who haven't looked at it. Whenever I think of the strategic plan, the part of that excites me the most is there's a page on it that has like opportunities and challenges. And I thought a lot of what we were perceiving in that as challenges were actually a lot of our strengths and opportunities. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, take a look at the opportunities page in particular. But yeah, just echo these guys.
Yeah, I agree with those three priorities. The one thing I would point out is that they move ahead at different paces. I think we have an immediate need to address the CCC for financial and community reasons. We have an intermediate need to create solutions for housing, and we have a long-term need to create a water department that pulls together our the three different water areas that we talked about: the culinary, wastewater, and secondary. And those have different horizons, and so I think we could work on them simultaneously, and that's how strategic plans work. As opportunities come up, as needs come up, as problems come up, we solve them in terms of the strategic plan. So you don't always march through a plan linearly, but as opportunities arise, and I think these are three really good opportunities.
Okay, I noticed that none of you played your poker chip. Is that because you want to save it for a final closing statement, or are you wanting to let these folks go home? So.
I think if while we're all here, if people have more burning questions, great. If not, great.
All right, I think we're gonna call it for tonight. I've got a couple of reminders. We can stick around for a little bit. Do stick around and get a few more snacks, please, or take some home, because they're definitely not all going in my fridge. If they do, they're going to go bad. So definitely help us take some home. Stick around for a little bit longer if you want. A couple of quick reminders. First, on election process. As you all probably know, we had 5 people that actually were going to be here tonight. One of the candidates decided not to run, and therefore we don't have a primary election. That's good news in a lot of ways. In a sense, it saves our town some money. And so you're not actually going to vote for 2 out of these 4 people until November 21st. You're going to get your Thanksgiving turkey ready at the same time as this election. It's the latest election I can ever remember having seen. But we wanted to hold this because everybody had already planned it. They had made it on the schedules, and it's a very busy fall, as we mentioned, eclipses and all that. So keep this in mind and keep asking good questions of these candidates. But that's kind of your election timeline. Also want to note tonight that I did not see any screaming activists in the room. Those of you may know what I'm talking about. We have a public hearing tomorrow night at 6 p.m. around the disconnection request to take about half of our town out of our town. And I was just really happy to see tonight the kind of decorum and courtesy that we had, and I really hope to see that type of decorum tomorrow. I also really hope to see this type of turnout tomorrow night because it's a very, very important issue. And so I know 2 nights in a row is a lot, but that's going to be 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Here back, same bat station, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, so I hope that you will come. So once again, I want to have you give a round of applause for these candidates for stepping up into the ring and answering the questions tonight. No, we're going to put the chairs. We're going to put the chairs away because we got some activities. I'm happy to help with that. Anybody else who wants to help, great, but it's no big deal if not. But I encourage you to mingle with the candidates if so. And thanks for coming tonight. All right, I'm going to take my poker chips back. Yes, it is.